Hello everybody, welcome back to Lucky Crit. A lot of you guys in the comment section of my Advance Wars Reboot Camp discussion video wanted me to kind of touch on and talk about the Nintendo Treehouse footage of the game and potentially do a little closer analysis of everything, which I have done in the past for Fire Emblem stuff. So that's what we're going to do here today in this video. Now there isn't too much footage for us to sort through here really, but there's a couple main topics that I do want to touch on from this footage. So let's get started. So the first question that came to mind when I was looking at the new character designs is, are we actually going to get two separate versions of character designs between Advance Wars 1 and 2 within Reboot Camp? Because if you think back, Advance Wars 1 and 2 had slightly different styles. The character designs changed a little bit in between both of those games. An example of that being Max definitely gaining a lot more muscle and ditching those little blue face tattoos or whatever they were. However, the more that I've spent time looking at these character designs, the more that I kind of feel like we are definitely just getting one batch of new character designs, and they will be the same between both games. And the reason why I say that is because if you look closely at the new designs, they look a lot like the Advance Wars Dual Strike versions of the characters. For example, Olaf here. Olaf in the original game, actually if you want to go even further back, Olaf in the original Japanese version of Advance Wars 1 was pretty much just like a Santa Claus character with a blue outfit instead. His beard was white. He had a little Santa hat looking thing instead of his actual military hat. So he was definitely way different. And if you actually know the history of Advance Wars 1, you'll know that in the localization process, a lot of characters' designs also changed. A good example of this being the character Drake. Drake was actually a pirate character before he came here in the West. I think his Japanese name is actually Mop too, which is kind of funny. But he sort of ended up just looking like a typical naval officer. Although if you kind of look closely at his pose, it does look like he still has kind of a pirate pose looking through his little telescope. Characters like Nell originally did not have sleeves to her military outfit in the Japanese version. The character Grit had more of a cowboy hat in the Japanese version, which was also the case in the Japanese version of Dual Strike, but not the Western version of Dual Strike. And between those three games, Advance Wars 1, 2, and Dual Strike, the character are also kind of progressed in terms of their style. They changed just a little bit, ever so slightly, throughout the series. But if we look closely now, we can see that the character Grit, while mostly looking the same as we remember, also now does have the cowboy hat from the Japanese version. The character Olaf looks much more like his Advance Wars Dual Strike counterpart than the Advance Wars 1 Olaf. So it seems like WayForward probably settled on the Dual Strike designs being the most canon designs, as those are the ones that we got after having several revisions throughout the series. So you can see now Olaf has his little Russian-looking winter hat. And once again, we're back to the brown-bearded Olaf instead of the white-bearded Olaf, as he continued to be in the Japanese versions. Although if you remember Advance Wars 2, there was an alternate costume color that you could give him to give him the white beard back. So I find that very interesting. Another thing I wanted to point out here about the new designs that I actually feel like is kind of a counterpoint to them, a bad point about them, is if you look at the character Andy, I mean, he used to look a lot more monkey-like, I think, in his original artwork, which is pretty funny. Obviously, that's lost here, but that I guess I could let go a little bit. But I feel like the original design of Andy was supposed to be like a kid looking like he didn't quite fit his outfit yet, right? Like, metaphorically speaking, he was a new recruit and didn't quite fill out his role as a CO. So if you look closely at his outfit, his sleeves are all rolled up, the outfit looks kind of big on him, and it just kind of looks like he's just a young kid wearing someone else's military outfit. I really like that part of his character, however, that's definitely lost here in this new redesign. It's just so much more simple, and it looks like it fits him way more. So it really does stink to lose classic details like that with this new redesign, but I think if there was ever a game to go this cartoony, I guess it would be Advance Wars 1 and 2. My other biggest reasoning in terms of asking this question about whether or not we would see two redesigns is the question of the antagonist of Advance Wars 1 and 2. That character's appearance changes pretty radically between the first two games, so I kind of wanted to see which one that they would probably go with. But I think judging by the other designs, it really seems like we will probably get his Advance Wars 2 design. Something that I wanted to point out here is that it really does seem like the game is really close to final in terms of this build that they're showing us, because not only are they confidently showing us multiple maps, but we also get to see the characters talking, and they have multiple animations for their little dialogue bits. So that's actually a little bit nicer than the original, I guess you could say, in terms of the characters actually animating a little bit on screen. But you'll also notice that some of these animations are also just repeated when it comes to the battle cutscenes, like when they win. Nell's CO power effect happens kind of slowly in terms of the animation. Like, one of my most nostalgic parts of Advance Wars was using a CO power, especially one like Hawk's Black Wave, where it just crashes down on everything really quickly. The camera's just racing around the scene, targeting every single unit. I mean, I love stuff like that. So to see it be a little bit slower here, I feel like is kind of unfortunate. However, you'll also notice that there's a pretty significant little load time before the actual battle cutscenes, which also kind of stinks. I really hope that they can iron that out maybe a little bit better by the time it launches, because it's a little slow. The actual unit movement in the battle cutscenes is also a little painfully slow too, and kind of incompetent looking, to be honest. I feel like they rolled up faster in the original and got right into the action. In this one, they're kind of like fumbling around a little bit before they attack. Even this Nintendo Treehouse host himself begins speeding up pretty much every battle cutscene, and it happens really early on when he starts fighting Eagle. So it's even kind of like he's getting bored of the slowness too, which really stinks considering he's just playing 2 battles on this stream. Another thing to point out is obviously now in Reboot Camp there is diversity within the infantry. We have various skin tones now, which were not present in the original. So it is a change, but a very minor one, and it kind of does make it more realistic in that there's a little bit of variety to the soldiers, of course. Just as an aside here, I feel like the Blue Moon medium tanks do not look very good. It's really hard to kind of gauge them as scary in this current form. It just, I don't know, there's just something about it. It doesn't look like a scary medium tank is supposed to look. Medium tanks are like the king of the battlefield in Advance Wars 1. And when you look at that thing, it just doesn't elicit that kind of emotional response. You will notice, though, that the individual characteristics of how each army's units looked in the original battle cutscenes of 1 and 2 are now exactly how they look on the map itself. So they're much more representative of how they actually look, which is cool. But as a down point to that too, it may cause some new players confusion as to which units they're actually attacking, because all of the units for the different armies are going to look different on the battlefield. However, the plus side is that it's really cool to see Eagle's legit fighters and really cool looking bombers flying around though. However, the bomber's little movement in the battle cutscene is kind of goofy. I don't really like that, to be honest with you. There is also some jankiness in the arms of the infantry, like when they place flags and stuff, and when they're holding their mech rocket launchers. That just looks a little weird. I kind of wish that that wasn't like that, to be honest with you. But I guess we'll have to see how it looks in the final release. You can also see for Kanbei here too in the original Advance Wars 1. I mean, in the original Japanese version of Advance Wars 1, he had more of a samurai outfit. The version of him that we got here in the West was a lot more simplified. This one has the Advance Wars 2 and Dual Strike appearance of Kanbei, where he has the ponytail. Drake and Max are looking chonky in this cutscene here. I guess it makes sense, it's just part of this cartoony aesthetic, but Drake definitely has been eating a few too many donuts, and even Max himself's looking a little obtuse there. Although, to be fair, Max's muscles were like upgraded throughout the series too, as he continued to be more and more of a blockhead. Just look at his dual strike muscles compared to his original Advance Wars 1 muscles. I mean, that is some serious lifting that he must have been doing. Considering they seem to be going for a mix between the Japanese and the English versions when it comes to both Olaf and Grit as the two differing examples, it will also be interesting to see how Sonya looks in this game too. Sonya in the original Japanese version of Advance Wars 1 had a red outfit because she was actually supposed to be from the Orange Star Army. In fact, she went to school with Sammy, if I'm not mistaken. But that little bit was removed from the Western version, as in this whole endeavor to make characters less stereotypical, she was actually given a green outfit and a little hat. That also carried on throughout the series in terms of her dual strike version as well, so odds are we'll probably see Sonya with the green outfit. But considering that we got the cowboy hat Grit, I guess it is on the table still too. They have also mentioned multiplayer for this game, but so far, if I remember right, it was co-op, which means like a single system playing with your friends, maybe passing the Switch around back and forth. I would love to see, as part of the Nintendo Online package, something where you could share maps or play with friends over the internet too. So hopefully we'll get to see some newer, more modern features than even what Advance Wars 1 had as well. I also wonder if we're going to be unlocking battle maps and stuff. I really kind of hope that they keep that whole feature system. That was really kind of cool to kind of go through and unlock characters and things with the coins. I appreciated that a lot. However, they do make it a point to kind of skip over any kind of victory scene here, so we don't really get a chance to find out if that's going to be the case. We start off here with a redesigned version of the 6th mission of the Advance Wars field training, this one being called Tank Ops. Obviously, the map has not changed. They've done a very good, accurate job of translating it into this game. Honestly, the Blue Moon soldiers look like angry little witches, and it kind of bothers me. Maybe they were supposed to have long noses in the original as part of their, origin. I don't know if that's commentary about them being Russian or something, as some kind of stereotype. But Olaf, I think, takes inspiration from Stalin, and essentially with his Blizzard cold wintry CO power, there's the connection that can be drawn there. Either way, they look like they're trying to mix up a potion in a cauldron, not command a legion of tanks, if you ask me. You can see, naturally, the battle cutscene backgrounds are considerably more detailed now, like this farm one with some cows in the back. Not something that we got to see in the original. You can also see on the other side, we have the city in the background, so you can see it's a little bit more based on what's actually in their surroundings, which is cool. It's kind of like what they started to do with the more recent Fire Emblem games based on the terrain of the actual map. It is a nice touch to have that further detail, but a barn and some cows seems oddly specific. This is from a plain tile, so I wonder if they all kind of look like that, which would be kind of weird. That kind of just calls back to sort of the charm of the original with its more generic backdrops, in that they could really be anywhere. There really wasn't that much going on with them, but they were still beautiful. They still had enough detail. Capturing an HQ also seems to have a considerably bigger window that pops up for it than with capturing cities. I mean, it is much more of a big deal. I just wanted to point that out. Seeing Olaf upset with this new style kind of just makes him look like he's from a Trick cereal commercial where he just got tricked by the rabbit. Or maybe it's like a sad Captain Crunch. I don't know, that's just what the style is eliciting for me. When we compare the dialogue to the original here, there are definitely some changes. It's not a direct one-to-one copy. I do want to give a thanks to the LP archive for these super crisp screenshots and notes about the dialogue here. So they changed Olaf's original mention of how Nell and Andy didn't have medium tanks to mentioning specifically that they didn't have any air units. So maybe tactically they figured that the air advantage of like a battlecopter or a bomber would beat out his medium tank more strategically, and that's why they're mentioning that specifically to the player. I don't know. Seems like a strange change. Next, we get to see them start up the third mission in the actual Advance Wars campaign, this one being called Air Ace, and it's the first time that you get to face off against Eagle. This time, we also get to see the starting dialogue here, and it definitely comes with more changes. I just want to point out that there are also differences between the original Andy's emotion and the new one, where he's looking a little bit more depressed this time. This next line I find super interesting. Nell has no mention of the player name, which used to happen in the original, but now I'm guessing that naming yourself and the characters talking directly to you is not going to be a thing. Now, they could have just revised this one line of dialogue here, and it could still be in, but my gut is telling me that they probably nixed this whole feature. It didn't do too much, but like for the final battle of the game, for example, trying to avoid spoilers, Andy does end up thanking the player as his strategist, kind of like the player's role in Fire Emblem 7 for Game Boy Advance, that many of us also played alongside this game. You feel more integrated into the game's story as they directly talk to you and consider your prowess. So if that's gone, then it might be a little weird to then see Andy brag about winning by himself at the end instead. Just something I'm going to call out there preemptively. These next few lines then are the same, but then Nell specifically says, "Hold your position," instead of "hold your positions," speaking to the player and Andy. So it's gotta be gone. Yeah, they even cut her asking the player to watch over Andy. Either it's modified for this treehouse footage, or they felt it was unnecessary to the game, and they nixed it. This map in particular has much sharper edges to the coastline than in the original game. Not the end of the world at all, just an observation. Whether that's a bit of laziness with the actual map editor to make it, or maybe it's a stylistic choice to not use a more curved coastal edge. But yeah, that's definitely much more sharp. It used to be a bit more round in the original. The reason why I specifically said laziness was that if you've ever played around with something like RPG Maker, you can absolutely make edges and coastlines like this, but a lot of things also have the ability to have a more specifically rounded edge, in which case you would have to go back as a second step and actually specifically round the edge. So that's why I say it's lazy, because it's like the more quick and dirty way of doing it is just literally click the plain tile there and click the other tile over across from it. But anyway, RPG Maker has nothing to do with this. It's just an observation. Let's take a look at this little battle info pop-up here. They've rounded it. They put the unit and terrain pictures on top of everything else, which is like sticking off of it, which is kind of weird. And they gave everything much bigger icons and actually named them. But yeah, that's about it for that. Honestly, losing Andy's victory hand sign kind of stinks too. It's weird how they were like so faithful in some areas, but then willingly unfaithful in others. but whatever, not the end of the world. But yeah, I'll be honest, I am absolutely getting and supporting this game because it'll still be great, and I want them to make more Advance Wars games moving forward. But for me, it's definitely never going to replace the original. Just looking at the screenshots of the original for this video, they just ooze so much charm and character, and the sprites still look so good to this day. Like, I would go play that right now. I didn't have any illusions that this game would ever be better than the original, and I do appreciate just how closely they are sticking to it, but the little subtle differences here and there are a bit bothersome to me, as somebody who grew up spending hours late at night grinding out Advance Wars battles. So that's going to just about do it for this. There's really not much more that we could glean from this footage here. They did a good job of not showing us certain things, but be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. How excited are you? What are your thoughts on this footage? Do you have any opinions on the new graphics or anything? Be sure to let me know. I'd love to interact with you in the comment section down below. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter for any news and updates. You can also join our Discord if you want to chat more there. And if you use any alt-text sites like BitChute, Odyssey, or Rumble, be sure to follow us over there as well. Links in the description down below. YouTube can be a pretty mean place, so I'll be putting my content there as well. And hopefully someday some exclusive videos for there too. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.